6 top mayoral candidates are squaring off this afternoon in a debate focused on housing. Let's listen in live.
Regional Real Estate Board. And thanks to, in particular to George Brown College's president, Dr. Gervin Fearon, and Senior VP Joe Cressy for hosting and moderating. The mayoral election comes at a critical time in Toronto. We are currently facing an unprecedented housing affordability and supply crisis. It is the #1 issue for voters. The next mayor of Toronto must ensure this housing crisis doesn't turn into a catastrophe, and that crucial housing of all forms is built. Today we'll hear from the 6 leading candidates about their solutions. Nothing less than the city's future is at stake. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Richard. Listen, this is a big city, and this is a very big election. More than 100 candidates have put their names forward for the position of mayor. As a former elected representative myself, I can tell you that that takes courage. All 6 of you know this well. Now, as the organizers of today's debate, we invited the 6 leading candidates as defined by their position in public polls as of last week. We are grateful to all 6 of you for having agreed to attend today. But we also recognize that logistically, we couldn't create a platform for more than 100 candidates. And so we encourage you, those here in person and watching on television, to educate yourself on all candidates running for mayor. Now, I'd like to formally welcome our 6 candidates here today, and I'd ask members of the audience to hold until I've introduced them all. Joining us here today in alphabetical order are Anna Bailao, Brad Bradford, Olivia Chow, Mitzie Hunter, Josh Matlow, and Mark Saunders. Give them a round of applause. All right. Let me explain the format for today's debate, because this is a big topic. So we have split today's debate into 4 sections, and we've asked a panel of experts to help us with asking the questions. Greg Brady, host of Toronto Today on AM 640, will ask questions on housing supply. Tess Kalinowski, the Toronto real estate and housing reporter from the Toronto Star, will ask questions on deeply affordable and supportive housing. Murtaza Haider, professor at TMU and the weekly real estate columnist at the National Post, will ask questions on planning, infrastructure, and approvals. And we have 3 George Brown students. No offense to our expert panelists, but these are the real experts. We have 3 George Brown students who will ask questions on student issues. In each section, our panelists will pose questions, and each candidate will have 45 seconds, each candidate to respond. There is a clock on the floor. I'd ask you as candidates to try to honor those 45 seconds. After that, we'll open it up for a debate, for which I will try to moderate. I'd say to candidates, catch my eye, put up a hand. I'll try to make sure we hear from all of you. I should note for everybody that the questions were selected by the panelists directly. Neither the mayoral candidates nor the event organizers were provided the questions in advance. And so my only hope here is for a substantive and engaging debate. The only ground rule is respect. We would ask the candidates to respect each other, and we would ask you, the audience here in person, to respect the candidates. That means no cheers or jeers, and I mean you, Adam Vaughan, when I say that. Today we want to hear from the candidates directly, not from all of you. No offense. So let me get started. I had to throw that in. Let me get started, and we want to invite each candidate to provide a 1-minute opening statement. They'll have a 1-minute close at the end. We're going to start in alphabetical order. And so with 1 minute, when you're ready, and there is a clock on the ground, Anna Bailao, over to you.
Thank you. My name is Anna Bailao. I'm running to be your mayor with a plan to fix services, build homes, and make life easier and more affordable so that our workers can live in our city, our youth is not pushed out, and the most vulnerable have the supports and the dignity of a home. There's nothing more foundational to someone's life than a home. And there's nothing more foundational to a city of where and how we build our homes and communities. This is more than a roof over somebody, a roof and 4 walls. This is about the economic and social well-being of our residents and of our city. You know, when my parents came here, a couple years later, they bought a house. and that's unthinkable of today. That is why I stand before you with a sense of urgency, determination, and commitment to get housing built. My plan will put people first. We'll build homes. We'll get the city moving on tackling the housing crisis. We will build 57,000 of affordable homes. We'll put more land on the hands of affordable nonprofit organizations, and we'll protect renters.
Thank you, Anna. Bradford.
Thanks very much, Joe, and thank you all for being here. It's great to be in a room full of city builders. My name is Bradford, and I am running for mayor. You know, my career has been defined by city building, the creative task of seeing the potential in real estate, seeing the potential in our communities, and bringing that to reality. I'm an urban planner by training. I've had an opportunity to work with many of you in that capacity. I actually worked at the Chief Planner's Office at the City of Toronto. That was my first exposure to the type of big bureaucracy that is holding this city back. So in 2018, I ran for council to fix it. And once I was elected, I can tell you it didn't take 4 years to diagnose the problem. We need less talk and more action from City Hall. We need to end the endless debate, deferral, delay that is holding this city back. It's time to build more housing. I will cut the red tape, streamline the process to make sure we build an affordable city for everyone, not just in one neighborhood, but across all 640 square kilometers. Together, we're going to get that done.
Thank you, Brad. Olivia Chow.
I immigrated with my mom and dad to Canada when I was 13. My dad had mental health issues, couldn't work. My mom, as a hotel maid with one little salary, was able to pay the rent in St. Jamestown and still feed the families. That's not possible now. Life is so unaffordable now. That is because the city have stopped building affordable housing in the last decade, and that needs to change. We could keep going in the same way, get stuck waiting for affordable housing, get stuck in traffic, we get stuck in everything. We need change now. Together, let's build a city that is more caring, affordable, safe, where everybody has a home. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Mitzie Hunter.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mitzie Hunter, and I'm running to be the mayor of Toronto. I want to lead Toronto's revival as a city that will work for everyone, everywhere in our city. Growing up in Scarborough, I had a friend who I worked with who became homeless. And my mom invited her to live in our home. We created a corner in our living room, and that's where her and her 2 boys lived. This city is at a turning point. We must not let it be a breaking point, or as was said earlier, a catastrophe. And housing is at the center of the concerns that I hear when I talk to people across this city. Young people who grow up here have to be able to afford to live here. That's our talent. Look at the brain trust in this room today. We can do this. We can fix the six. Let's work together to do it.
Thank you, Mitzie. Josh Matlow.
My name is Josh Matlow, and I'm running to be your mayor because I believe that a better Toronto is possible if we focus on real ways to address safety, affordability, and livability, and addressing the declining services that we've seen for far too long. When I talk about affordability, I mean that every one of us needs to adapt our views and evolve, including myself, to address the housing affordability crisis. There are too many young people who I hear from who have given up on their dream of owning a home, even in their own neighborhood that they grew up in. Renters are spending too much on rent and not enough money left over for groceries. There are people who are living on our streets and in our parks who need a real path to housing. The best way to fix homelessness is to ensure that people have a home. And there are older adults who might be house rich, but they're poor month to month because their pensions aren't keeping up with inflation. Housing should be a right for everyone, and I have a very clear plan on addressing the many different areas that if we focus on and actually act on, we can address the crisis.
Thank you, Josh. Mark Saunders.
Great, thanks. Again, always a bridesmaid here. First off, let me say thank you all for being here. You know, in 1967, my parents came with 6 kids, and the vision was to provide a better education. And I fast forward to today, after being a former chief of police, running the largest municipal policing agency in the country, establishing experienced leadership, having an opportunity to run for mayor of the city of Toronto, and this is exciting. When I look at the housing debate, my debate is, why hasn't it been done? Everybody over here to my left, they're going to talk about plans and schemes and all these kind of things, which are wonderful, but they never delivered. This is a leadership race. This is about experienced leadership, putting a plan together and executing that plan, and that plan simply has never been executed. Constant discussions about the hamster wheel. My plan will build the 40,000 affordable places. My plan will meet the 285,000 new units that have to be built. Through leadership and a plan, it will get done. Thank you.
Thank you all. So we're going to move into the debate format. Now, again, we have 4 sections. The first is on housing supply. Again, you're each going to have 45 seconds. I'm going to start with Bradford. After we've heard from all of you, we will open it up for debate. Just signal to me or jump in. We'll see how this goes. I'm going to turn it over to Greg Brady from Toronto Today to kick us off.
Thanks very much. Nice to see all 6 of you. A little later in the day than I usually see you, so we're all a little more coherent. A recent Ipsos poll showed 76% of Canadians feel owning a home is the best investment a person can make. Same poll, 63% of Canadians who don't already own a home have given up on ever owning a home. So all 6 of you have been on our show, Toronto Today on 640 Toronto. Thanks, Joe. And I got all of you to agree with me that parents should help their kids if they can buy their first home. But parents shouldn't have to sell their own home to make that happen. That's not the dream. As mayor, what will you do to make home ownership possible for more young adults? And I'd like you to let down the curtain a little bit too. Can all of you please begin your answer with telling us the age you were when you bought your own home? I'll share, I bought a home with my eventual wife at age 30. She said, that's the house. And I said, absolutely it is, honey. So that's how that worked. All right. Brad, you start.
Thanks very much, Greg. Appreciate the question. I was, I guess I'm 36 now, and so we probably bought our place at 30. And yet I hear from folks every single day, that's not possible. And we had some help. We were very privileged and fortunate we had some help, and that's what it takes for so many people to get in the market right now. The question is, why is it so hard to get in the market? The answer is easy: supply. We do not have enough housing to meet the demand. We have 500,000 new Canadians, 500,000 new Canadians coming to the region every year. There's a huge demand for housing, and the housing isn't getting built. Now, let's talk about the numbers. The City of Toronto approves 30,000 new housing units every year, but only 16,000 get built. We need to streamline the process, make it easier to build housing, remove the bureaucracy, cut the red tape, get more shovels in the ground faster. I'll hold on the time and we'll come back.
Thank you. Olivia.
Yep. I had the same experience. Honey, this is the house. I said, okay, but I was that late husband of mine. I was in my 40s, and we had to rent out quite a few rooms in order to pay the mortgage. It wasn't easy, but it was doable, and not so much now. I think one of the key reasons is because there's not enough supply from the affordable side, because at that time, the city government at the time built 32,000 units of housing itself, and then it stopped. We need to get back. The City of Toronto have a role to play. Be the developer and actually build, in my plan, 25,000 units of housing.
Mitzie.
Thanks, Greg. So I was 27, and I lived in Scarborough. Our family home that we rented was burnt out. And so for a while, we lived above a store. And my mom said to me, Mitzie, I really want you to have your own place. So I paid down on a condo and started to save. I asked my niece, Jada, recently if she hopes to buy a home. She says no. She doesn't have that as part of her goal because she just simply can't afford it. And so I have a comprehensive plan to build more affordable housing on city-owned land where the city is the builder as well as the owner, deeply affordable, because we have to make sure that this city continues to be a place that young people can live here.
Josh.
I was in my mid-30s when Melissa and I bought our first home. And it was actually on a residential street in a neighborhood that used to have larger single-family homes that were redeveloped into a row of townhomes. And that's why we were able to get into the market just barely. We're still paying for that today. The bank is the majority owner, and it's true. But and that's one of the reasons why we need to reimagine our neighborhoods and just adapt to the reality that whether you are younger, like we were trying to find a price point that could just access the market, or an older adult that would like to even maybe break up their existing home and have their kids own a unit and then somebody else own another unit and condoize it in a way where we cut the fees to allow that feasibly to happen. It's one thing to rezone, but we also need to actually ensure that the rules allow it to become a reality.
I'm going to go to Mark. Thank you.
Okay, that was a short 45 seconds.
It is.
I was in my mid-20s, and I'll tell you, it was by luck in one stance, but also it was 70% of my income to live. So when we spoke about groceries and buying the necessities for day-to-day, it was complex. But the problem we're in right now is government's role is to create the environment for buildings to happen, for these affordable places to take place, and government has failed. When you look at the average age of purpose-built rentals in Toronto, 90% of purpose-built rentals are over 40 years old. It's because people have done a lot of talking and not executing. There lies the difference between these great plans and not executing. I am here to execute so people can live their dreams of living in the city at an affordable price.
Anna?
So I was about 26 years old, and I walked home with the plans for a condo, and my parents almost had a heart attack when I told them I was about to buy a condo. That was when I bought my first property. I think we need to do three things to have more ownership in the city. Increase supply. Absolutely, we need to increase supply, and obviously the city has a lot to do in terms of the approvals and speeding up the approvals as well. We need to work more with our nonprofits, Options for Homes, Habitat for Humanity, because there's an income bracket that will need to have access to those organizations. And we need the housing options as well, like what I've done with laneway housing and coach housing and multiplexes housing, to give options, because you might not be able to buy the 1.5 million, but maybe getting together with your brother or sister, you might be able to afford the $750,000.
Thank you, Anna. Greg, back to you, unless this is a portion where if people want to jump in fast pursuit or wanted to add on, I can't open it up here.
May I?
Brad?
I would just say that, when it takes 3 years to get through housing approvals, we have the slowest housing approval rate in North America, and that's not a statistic that you want to lead. So when we talk about the supply challenges, there is just a whole apparatus of bureaucracy that slows things down. And I will point 1, 2, 3 candidates on the stage that think the answer to building more housing is building more bureaucracy. That is completely the wrong approach. So what we need to do is streamline the process, get the approvals done faster, get shovels in the ground, and work with our not-for-profit and market providers to build the housing.
I just want to say that the focus that I have on the Affordable Housing Corporation is actually to take the city-owned lands and make that majority affordable housing. 77% for affordable home ownership at below average market rents, as well as 6,100 of those units will be home equity, so that young people can actually buy into the market at half the cost. And so this is about getting more supply on stream. It's not about bureaucracy.
Okay, I'm going to Anna, then Mark, then Olivia, then Josh. Anna.
The first hire I'm going to do when I get elected mayor is a land economist for the city of Toronto. So people learn how to read performance and actually stop making feel-good policies that will not put shovels on the ground, and realize that everything has an impact on the cost of housing and the price of housing. And these plans don't add up. Any of you in the construction business can get anything done for $260 a square foot. You can't. The math doesn't add up. We need to have real plans for a real crisis that we have in our hands.
Mark?
Again, I'm going to go to full circle. Everybody knew what the stats were, and everyone here had an opportunity to be a part of moving things in the right direction, and they did not. And with all due respect, Ms. Bailao, you were in charge of housing. Not once did you stick your hand up and say that there was a problem. You went with the flow. You stayed with status quo. You did not move further on what needed to be done, especially when it came to the process. So I find it rather rich to be talking about what things that will be done when things should have been done with the vast majority. And with all due respect, Ms. Hunter, you're adding another layer of government. That's all it is at the end of the day. We're moving in the wrong direction when we're moving to add another layer. We need leadership that moves in the direction that we need to do, and that direction is to build. And to build at an affordable rate, cutting the red tape so it doesn't cost more, and creating Toronto to be an environment where people that build want to come to the city to build, because right now they don't because of what has happened.
I have Olivia, then Josh coming in. Olivia?
We need affordable housing, rental housing, market, mid-range. We need gentle density, as-of-right building, 4 stories, 4 units. Go for it. I represented the entertainment district, the Kings, 15 years, 95 projects. My gosh, you see it coming up. It's totally doable. We need all of it. Let's get together and build it. But most important, let's build those affordable units, because there are 90,000 people, household actually, on the waiting list for rent gear to income housing. That's my priority too.
Josh?
Along with improving access to more options for more people to buy in our neighborhoods, we also need to put forward a plan, as I have, to protect renters' livability and affordability. We need to make sure that there's more access to social housing, cooperatives, a number of different models to provide more options for people in the city. And when it comes to building on our own properties, I do find it rich that the very people who voted for and consistently supported Housing Now, which is a failure, 6 years on, not a single shovel in the ground, can look at plans like I've put forward and criticize them and say, you can't do that. I'm proposing a model where we actually move forward as a public builder, not new bureaucracy. We're working with the people we have to move forward with affordable housing, deeply affordable housing, and the market rents are going to pay for the project moving forward, and they're going to be rent controlled. We can do that if we choose to. But the reality is, anyone who tells you that the existing status quo that they've created is working, the test of failure is whether or not there's a single shovel in the ground. There isn't one, and I'm proposing a model to use the expertise of the city to move forward with the construction, because
I want to bring some others in.
The greatest failure is that it relies on the risk from developers to actually move forward with that project.
Now,
that's not right.
There were some claims made directed towards Anna Bailao and Mitzie. I want to give them a chance to respond, and then I'm going to come back to Greg. I'd ask you to keep your responses quick. Mitzie, then Anna.
So we can't do the same old, we have to have a solution. The solution that I'm proposing is very much about building more housing more quickly. I have the experience as the former Chief Administrative Officer for Toronto Community Housing Corporation, and I understand how to get things done. And so this is about making sure that we actually invest in neighborhoods, in mixed communities. It's a spectrum of housing. It's not just one type. And that's what we need in Toronto. We need to fill in that missing middle. We need to build on the 1,200 kilometers of major streets that we have, 8 stories, as well as unlock public lands to make sure that we have those units for the young people who need to live in our city.
All right, final word very briefly to Anna, and then I'm coming back to you, Greg.
Listen, when I became chair of planning and housing, I inherited a broken system. Governments were stepping away, for decades, stepping away from building housing. We had to actually change the system, bringing the city back into the housing system. Today, since 2017, we have built over 1,600 units of affordable housing. We have 3,000 under construction, and we have 15,000 approved. Do we need to do more? Do we need to do quicker? Absolutely. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm running, because I am the one that has the track record to work with all of you, nonprofits and builders and 3 orders of government, to bring it to the table and to get those shovels done.
Anna,
I'm going to come back, and I appreciate Mitzie, but I want to make sure we get back to Greg Brady, because he has an early morning show. He's been awake a long time.
That's all right.
Greg, back to you on questions. And again, we're going to have 45 seconds first. Olivia, you're kicking us off this round.
Okay.
Okay, Olivia, what are your views on the current level of taxation on housing in Toronto? In particular, the municipal land transfer tax, property tax, the vacant home tax, and other government-imposed fees? And will you promise a week before the election to tell the voters of Toronto what their property taxes will be in 2024? If you can't make this promise to all 6 candidates, why won't you?
Well, let me talk about the first part of your question. You asked about all the other forms, okay? So absolutely land transfer tax. I believe that to people, since we need to build housing, we have to find the money somewhere. You and I agree with that.
Yeah.
So land transfer tax, I'm not touching it for people that are, 98% of the folks that are buying a new home. But that 2% that buy homes that are 10 million, 20 million, 5 million, 3 million, they can afford to pay a bit more. And I'm generating that funds in order to support the program that I'm describing. Okay? And the second one you asked about
We'll get to you on the way back for the second one.
Okay.
Will you tell voters what the property tax will be on their property for 2024?
What I would do is I will actually look at all the needs of the people of Toronto. I'm beginning to say, like, for example, a third of 1% will raise me $13 million a year, and that would actually go to put in the down payment plus the federal dollars to build the 25,000 units of housing, rent control housing, and 30% of them would be affordable.
Mitzie, 45 seconds.
Yeah, so, I want to build a city that actually works for the people who live here. And we know that the city's infrastructure is crumbling. We see that, whether it's in the potholes or it's in the snow that wasn't removed. And people want to make sure that when they pay their taxes, they're getting that service back to make sure that we have a clean and beautiful and well-maintained city. And also a city that is affordable. And that's what I'm going to be focused on. The land transfer tax is something that is unpredictable. We don't know what it's going to be. And frankly, it's floated the city for the last number of years. Olivia, I think you have to also think about the fact that, you increase taxes on those that are wealthier, but what happens when it locks up the movement of housing supply. Those that are trying to enter the market may not be able to afford it because it puts upward pressure on the cost of those homes. So we just have to make sure that we be careful about that as well.
Josh?
There are very few tools, as you know, Joe and Greg, that we have available in the City of Toronto Act to be able to raise revenue, to be able to meet the needs of Torontonians, whether it be housing, transit, and improving services. I also recognize that we are facing a $1.5 billion shortfall now that's being covered up by raiding the reserves. That's reckless, and we can't go on that way. So I decided to perhaps be the first mayoral candidate in our history to admit that we need to raise property taxes. And so above inflation, there's going to be a 2% property tax raise that I call the City Works Fund. And the reason that is the City Works Fund is it's going to be a dedicated fund directly toward improving, whether it be repairing roads, improving access to recreation, making sure that we have supports for our most vulnerable.
I'm going to go to Mark just after you finish that slide.
And the many challenges that we face with declining services, including housing. I'm going to be moving
have to
forward.
pause you there and go to Mark.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
We'll come back to you.
Great, thanks. First off, I've been very clear. I am not going to be raising taxes above inflation. Right now, when we talk about affordability, I'm not going to take food off your table to feed your families. What I will do, though, is make sure that we're accountable for the existing budget and where money should not be spent, and we should be prioritizing it on the right things. I'm listening to some fancy stuff. Olivia did not say anything with respect to are you going to raise taxes. I can answer that for you. She will raise taxes. You will hear the sounds of cranes leaving the City of Toronto, going to other jurisdictions. Make no mistake about it. If you follow the past and follow history, that is the agenda. Taxes will be raised. And how wealth is defined, whether you're wealthy or not, well, hold on to your seatbelts, because once you hear that, it's going to be a nightmare in the City of Toronto.
This is why we're in trouble.
I'm going to over to Anna and then Brad, and Olivia, I'm going to give you a chance to respond to that right after. Anna?
We have an affordability crisis in this city, and I take that in consideration. I will not raise taxes above the rate of inflation. But I do realize as well, and as everybody in this room does, that we have a $1.5 billion hole in our budget. That would mean a 39% property tax increase. You know why I'm really running on and asking everybody to give me their vote to get a better deal for the City of Toronto? There is no you're not going to tax your way out of this hole. You're not going to cut services out of your way out of this. You need somebody that is going to get a better deal for the City of Toronto. And it starts with the upload of the Gardner and the DVP. It's just an example of how unfair it is that we're paying for those highways that over 50% of population use. The only one that has a track record of getting billions for the City of Toronto is me. We need, on day one, somebody that is going to be able to negotiate that deal.
And Brad?
I don't know how long ago these candidates paid off their mortgages, but I still have a mortgage, and it's very expensive. And cash flow is tight for Torontonians on a month-to-month basis. Interest rates have gone up 40%. People are paying thousands and thousands of dollars every year in after-tax dollars, and that makes life less affordable in the City of Toronto. I don't want people to have to move to Hamilton. I want them to stay right here in this city if that's where they want to be. And Olivia Chow's plan to jack everybody's taxes up ignores the fact that people are dealing with an affordability crisis. The MLTT, the vacant home tax, how many vacant home units in Toronto? The number came back 2,100. It was a fraction of what staff estimated, and that is not going to be a panacea. So we have to be very honest, and I appreciate the question, Greg. How expensive is Olivia Chow going to make life here in this city?
So I want to give Olivia a chance to respond here. Olivia?
Yeah. Mr. Bradford has said something like 20%. I don't know where he came up with that number. It's wrong. And I've been on the budget committee for 10 years. It has been a balanced budget, unlike what you're seeing now, that there's a budget with a big, deep hole in it of over $1 billion. And what is a budget? What is tax? It's really when you, let's say a family come together, if the roof is leaking, if one of the kids is sick and needs some medication, what do? You go and find other money, right? You may have to work another shifts and do another job. And that is what we are looking for, additional dollars like the mansion tax, the luxury homes, and the speculators. And on top of it, the federal and the provincial government has a role to play. And we've been 10, 12 years where we have not had a fair deal for the city.
Right, Josh,
and let's work together to make that happen.
Just to get real for a moment, of course we need to advocate for a better deal, both governance and financial framework with other governments. But anyone who actually believes that Doug Ford is going to come to our rescue is not being honest with you or themselves, because there's no evidence of that. In fact, Doug Ford, only a week or two ago, said he's not going to upload the garden in the DVP. So yes, we need to advocate, and yes, we need to achieve a new deal for Toronto. But we also need to get our own house in order, and that means being honest with residents about what it will take to improve our quality of life, both affordability, livability, and safety. And the reality is, and if I may just finish my answer to you, Greg, we also need to have a climate action levy, a corporate parking lot levy, to bring in at very least $200 million a year to fight the climate crisis, to reverse the cuts to the TTC, to put towards housing, to do real things that make a difference in people's lives. But if we're not willing to be realistic and be honest with residents when we're running for election, then how can they trust us to deliver anything if we're elected mayor? I'm demonstrating to people that not only do I have a plan, but it's real.
I'm going to Mark, then Brad, then Anna and Mitzie with the last word. Mark?
Yeah. I just heard the sounds of cars from small businesses driving out of this city right now. But I'm going to answer Ms. Chow's question because she doesn't want to answer. She said herself, I'm ready to tax. City of Toronto, Olivia Chow is ready to tax. It's simple. So let's stop dancing around this and get right to the point. We have to have a strong working relationship with all levels of government if we're going to get this right. Being an experienced leader knows how to negotiate those opportunities. I've done it in the past, and I'll do it again. Toronto's not going to dig itself out of these massive issues. We are the biggest city in the country, fourth largest in the continent. We need help. You're going to get more bees to honey than salt. So if you're going to start pointing fingers about the enemy and David and Goliath moments, we all got to get along here if we're going to build.
Okay,
it starts with building relationships.
Like with Doug Ford.
Like with anyone, really? That is in power.
Okay, thanks very much. For the record, for everybody watching at home, Olivia keeps going back to the balanced budget. The budget is required to be balanced by law in municipalities. So I don't want you to pat yourself on the back too much for that. That is the law. And I also want to say you don't We did the math for you on your tax
thank
increases, and we released that yesterday for everybody. I call it 20%. It's 19.98% property tax increase, and that's a conservative estimate because it doesn't account for all of the new bureaucracy and layers of government that you're going to create to stand up some sort of municipal bureaucratic development arm. That is the wrong direction. That will make life in this city less affordable, more expensive. People cannot afford a 20% tax increase from Olivia Chow, and that is why I am standing up and fighting for affordability here.
So how much am I getting from the vacant home tax? Because you asked me that question. How much am I getting for 3%? Give me a number if you know your math.
You are saying that you're going to get a lot more than is available.
How much? How much am I getting in that vacant home tax?
There's only 2,100 units. The city government estimated
Give me a figure.
If you will stop talking, I will answer your question.
Well, then I'm going to pause you both and go straight to Anna Bailao. Anna, and then Mitzie to close us off.
You guys do your math because I've done mine. I've done mine since day one, and I always knew that the $1.5 billion and the $46 billion in capital backlog was the real problem that the city is facing, and we need a mayor that is going to be able to deal with it. And here you have somebody that has built the career as being in opposition and is only talking about solving his taxes as Olivia Chow, and Mark Saunders that tries to be the outsider, even though that he was a police chief, the candidate for a PC government, the advisor for the Ontario Place, and now tries to make it seem like he's the outsider and is the preferred candidate of Doug Ford. You need somebody to stand up for this city.
You've got
you need somebody that has actually delivered. You need somebody. You have somebody that actually.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the land
you can have somebody that actually delivered. That when houses were being sold at TCHC, and I was told there is no plan to go to the other orders of government, today we have a fully funded $2.6 billion, and those homes I saved because I did it and didn't take no for an answer.
And I'm going to go to Mitzie with the last word here. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a lot of questions, and then we're going to switch topics on our second theme. Mitzie?
So it's very clear listening to this debate that we need a new solution for Toronto. We cannot just do the same old, same old. I am the only candidate on this platform here that has a plan that has been put together, transparently posted on my website, and people can take a look at this. I will release a fully costed budget before the voters go to the poll. We need to build more housing. We've said that. It's not about identifying the problem, it's about actually having a plan to solve it. And that is what I am offering right here, building more affordable units, ensuring that we have more capacity on our major streets to add more density, as well as unlock the missing middle by offering homeowners a $100,000 reforgivable loan to create those 1, 2, and 3 additional suites and units of housing. We cannot stand still. We cannot just give everything over to developers to solve for us. The city has to be the owner, and we cannot just hope that the federal and provincial governments are going to step in and solve Toronto's problems. This is something that we have to do ourselves, and the people of this city are counting on us to do that, and that's why I'm running to be your mayor.
And colleagues, I know you want to jump in, but
Olivia.
we're moving to an important topic here on deeply affordable
6 top mayoral candidates are squaring off this afternoon in a housing debate. The debate will continue, and viewers can tune in online at cp24.com.